Mr Hartfield. Welcome, and do you have an opening statement you wish to make, Mr Hartfield?
No.
Happy to go straight to questions?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Senator McKenzie.
Thank you. I just want to take you to something that's happening right now at Sydney Airport. Today, the Air Traffic Control Tower is experiencing a lack of staff and have instituted a ground delay program from 3 p.m. until curfew. Now, it's my understanding that the weather is fine and sunny with barely a 10-knot wind. This ground delay is going to restrict arrivals to 26 movements an hour, down from an estimated 50 an hour. All airlines are actually experiencing delays right now as a result. We've got reports that the average Qantas delay is 72 minutes. Cancellations have already begun. Virgin has an average delay of 95 minutes, and that's already affected 47 flights. When Sydney Airport experienced disruptions, the entire country is put on hold as it flows on to Perth, to Adelaide, Melbourne, Brisbane and beyond. And international travellers, I think, are also missing connections as a result of this. Now, I want to understand your response to that. What is happening in the Air Traffic Control Tower in Sydney right now? Because if the @SID squad was live today, they would say the weather's fine. So there's only one other reason for excessive cancellations and delays going out of Sydney today, and it's Airservices Australia.
That's correct. Excuse me, Senator Jason Hartfield, Chief Executive Officer. Yes, today in Sydney, and I just have to get confirmed whether it's in the tower or the terminal control unit. We have a couple of absences today.
Couple? Two?
Yes, two. My understanding is there's two absences that we haven't. Sorry. It is two in the tower. It is not the terminal control unit. As a result of that, we've had to adjust the acceptance rate into them because we haven't been able to replace them. So two have gone on unplanned absence.
Where the hell are all our air traffic controls that we had?
Sorry?
Where the hell are they all gone?
So we have...
sorry, Senator.
Sorry, sit there. So we have over about 950 operational air traffic controllers. Where we are experiencing... So, Senator, I'll come back to finish the...
Yeah, I mean, because it's pretty incredible that two people don't show up for work and the entire country is shut down. That's effectively what's happened here.
Senator, I completely accept that, and this is one of the issues that we're working through, that we have an unplanned absence during the day, and as a result of that, particularly when it happens in Sydney, it does have a cascading effect around the country because most aircraft, for most of the airlines, will rotate through Sydney multiple times a day.
Yeah.
And so as a result of that delay, it does cascade around the country.
So I've just outlined the number of flights that have already been cancelled and delayed in Sydney right now, and that's going to be happening all afternoon and into the evening before curfew. Don't you think, Mr Hartfield, after the years and years that we've had you in particular, and Airservices Australia before this committee, questioning bullying and harassment policies, bullying, the staffing issues, etc. Why is it the airlines and the airports that are apologising and not you?
Senator, I have apologised for the delays and cancellations that we are directly attributable for.
Are you responsible for the cancellations and delays out of Sydney today?
Yes.
Can you quantify economically what the failure of two air traffic controllers to rock up to work has cost the country?
Not right off the top of my head now, but it's something that we do pay attention to, and that's one of the reasons why we are looking at and trying to improve the system to actually minimise and take away to be able to guarantee the acceptance rates into all of the airports, not just Sydney.
So, have you briefed the Minister on these issues? Is Minister King aware?
Yes.
And what has she asked you to do?
Continually to show our forward plans and our progress against those plans. We do that through our quarterly reporting on result of and also based on our statement of expectation on how we are continuing to improve service delivery.
And how it would seem, is that going in the right direction? Are you continuing to improve, or are we continually having cancellation and delays month in, month out that are going in the wrong direction?
Senator, is that over the last 12 months we've continued to improve month on month, except for December, where that was a reversal of the trend that we have been on. And during December, which is our worst month, 1 in every 6 delays was directly attributable to Airservices. The results from the last month in January, we saw it come back to 1 in every 8 aircraft delayed, directly responsible by Airservices.
What was it? Sorry if I can, Senator McKenzie. What was it before the pandemic?
Before the pandemic, we would probably be getting, say, to 1 in 10, 1 in 12. There
More.
was where Airservices is directly attributable to the delay.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
Yep. So the 2 major carriers are experiencing significant delays, as I said, one averaging 72 minutes, the other 95, with cancellations already being communicated to travellers today. The public are rightly concerned that you can't do your job. Australia's biggest international airport is crippled time and time again by your agency. At what point does the Labor government take responsibility, Minister Brown, and actually deliver?
What we have seen, actually under the former government, was 140 air service controllers incentivised to take early retirement, and of course the government is talking with Airservices and also urging them to recruit and to train as fast as they can. But essentially we are now cleaning up what was left with the short-sighted decision to incentivise retirement for 140 air traffic controllers.
How long ago was that, Assistant Minister Brown?
2020.
Okay, so over 4 years ago.
Well, it does take a long... It's highly skilled.
We've got the country being shut down right now. That's what we're actually talking about. Mr Harfield, when did you last brief Minister King?
I provided an update to Minister King, written briefing, about 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Have you taken the opportunity to inform her of what's happening in Sydney Airport right now?
I'm not sure whether the organisation had advised her of what was going on today, but where we have major disruptions, we do advise the office.
So Sydney Airport is particular because it's already strangled by the curfew that caps movements at 80 an hour, and it can't actually catch up because the government has also sat on the Harris Review, which would have actually freed up slots to actually allow, when things like this happen, there is the ability to catch up on movements. Minister, will Catherine King actually order a review into the proper management of Airservices Australia that's holding our aviation industry and, more broadly, the country today to ransom?
I would like to say, in regard to the Harris Review into Sydney Airport, which was commissioned by the former government, which you had for almost 2 years and did nothing with. We are...
Will the Minister get a review of this agency?
We are a serious government that is doing the hard work of developing policy that balances the need to increase access into Sydney while managing the impacts of communities on the ground.
No, that is not the case, Assistant Minister.
And the
Harris Review is sitting on Minister King's desk.
The Harris Review...
Colleagues, everyone just resume your seats, please. I have to say that, so get your mics turned off. Can we just go back to my opening statement, and we'll give everyone the opportunity to ask any question they want, but I would urge, let's hear the question come out, and if we're not happy with the question, please feel free to ask another one. But let's not start shouting over each other. Now, Minister, you were answering, and then I'll give you the call, Senator McKenzie, to go straight back after when the Minister's finished.
My apologies, Chair.
That was for all of us, not specifically you.
Right, thank you.
All of us.
And of course, when we are looking at the sector more broadly, of course, we have our aviation white paper, which, and this
Great
is
big
about
leaf.
the reforms that need to happen. We've taken on. This government is serious around doing the hard work and getting the balance right in terms of the aviation sector. But I have to say, Senator McKenzie, to reference the Harris Review, of which your government commissioned, and they had it for 2 years and did nothing.
That's actually not. I'm happy to address those comments by Assistant Minister. We did call for the Harris Review because we knew that was a problem.
That's right.
We had a little thing called COVID, and prior to losing the election, we had opened consultations on how to actually implement the Harris Review. That is all ground to an amazing halt on the tarmac from your government. And the reality is that right now we have 2 air traffic controllers go sick and the whole country stops. That's actually what's happening. And you can talk about the white and green paper process as much as you like, but right now businesses, families are all struggling with the fact that we've got Airservices Australia as an agency can't get its act together. And my question, Minister, was actually why has it taken the Senate to instigate an investigation into this agency? Why hasn't Minister King herself reviewed the behaviour and the functionality of Airservices Australia? You might want to take that on notice. I want to go now to air traffic controllers.
Just before you do,
And thank you for your apology, Mr Harfield, on behalf.
Senator McKenzie, can I just ask one quick question? How long does it take the train and someone
Takes
completely
5
green
years,
to become a qualified air traffic controller?
So if it takes somebody what I call off the street, so no private experience, it would take us 2 years to get them what I call operational, not sort of like a 5-year veteran. We sit there to get them on an operational.
2 years.
2 years.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Senator McKenzie.
Thank you. So how many air traffic controllers have you recruited in 2023?
If I 2023, could we just get the exact number? Don't have it on, but the aim was during 2023 that we would bring at least 80 air traffic controllers on.
And you have a target of 140?
140.
That you want to onboard?
No, so we're actually trying to make sure that we have a pipeline that is between bringing on about 80 to 100 a year. Continually, because there's sort of
year on year,
because you end up getting not only retirements, but there's movement, but also to continue with growth.
Okay, so how many trainees were accepted in 2023? And
I'll get you that exact number, but what we've got to is that we will have about, off the top of my head, 50 qualified air traffic controllers on by June this year, by the end of the financial year, and another 40 on top of that by the end of the calendar year.
So in the pipeline?
Yeah, so it's in the pipeline.
So I've received information from a number of applicants who went through around 6 months of screening processes.
Correct.
And in June last year you changed your guidelines and rejected some candidates. How many applications did this change affect?
I'd have to take that on notice, Senator, to provide that.
But that is the fact, that it's 6 months of screening?
Usually by the time that we go put people through aptitude testing and then subsequent, after that aptitude testing, do interviews, it can take up to 6 months.
So why were these applicants rejected without warning or explanation after going through that
I need to take that on
process?
notice. I don't have that information.
Mr Curran, do you know?
Senator Peter Curran, Airservices Chief Customer and External Relations Officer. No, I don't know the specifics about the individuals that went through our screening process and at what stage they were.
And I don't want to know, I don't want them identified, but I do want to know, as part of due process and natural justice, why you change a process and they're all of a sudden kicked out.
Senator, just so that There were 2 streams of intake last year. One was previously experienced air traffic controllers, which we were using to supplement ab initios because it takes us 2 years. How did we deal with that versus the ab initio process? So we will break it up into those 2 particular streams.
Okay, and the ADF and ASA are the only 2 registered training organisations for air traffic controller training, is that correct?
In Australia, but Airservices is the only one accredited for civil air traffic control.
Right. And where do you have to actually live to get ASA training? Can you do that anywhere? Can I log on?
No, Senator. The only thing is our main training school is in Melbourne.
Yep.
And we do have an overflow to be able to do from Brisbane as well.
Okay, so you can, but if I want to become an air traffic controller, do I have to move to Melbourne?
When you become a trainee air traffic controller, you become an employee of Airservices, and for the period of your training, we take you down to either Melbourne or Brisbane before, and if you're what we would call an en route controller, you'll be staying in either Brisbane or Melbourne anyway, or if you're a tower controller, you would go to one of our 29 towers.
And how much would I be, when you say uprooted, is it sort of, how much am I getting paid?
I would have to take, I noticed the exact thing from our
Isn't
trainee.
it about $55,000?
About that, but you'd also get allowances and all that sort of stuff because we would be relocating you for a period of time temporarily to Melbourne.
So if shortages are in Brisbane, are you now running training in Brisbane to recruit locals?
No, so what we would do is we have a general intake. And when people are coming on board, we would give them an indication to whether they would go to Brisbane or to Melbourne or to whatever tower. And so when they're employed, so don't get me wrong, if somebody's from Brisbane or Queensland, there'll be most likely we would send them back to Brisbane.
It's a pretty big ask for people to uproot their whole lives.
Yes, for that period of time.
Do you think your selection and training processes might actually contribute to the fact that we can't get enough air traffic controllers through the system?
That's something that we're reviewing all the time. Yeah, because it's not about just attracting to whether because we need to assess that because it takes you 2 years, you don't want somebody coming on that like after a year find out that they can't make the standard. As a result of that, they've just wasted a year of their life doing that. So,
but isn't that your 6-month screening process should work?
That's the idea, but that doesn't necessarily. That's why we have to continue to review that to make sure that we're getting the right candidates, and then also how do we get what we would call speed to competence. So how do we get them through without compromising standards? This is something we have to review all the time.
How many fully qualified staff are employed as air traffic controllers?
I'd have to take the exact number on notice, but it's something like...
Why don't you give me a round number?
So for operational air traffic controllers, so what I would call being able to work on the rosters, probably around about 950.
950?
Yes. Yeah, 948 to be precise.
To be air traffic controllers.
Sorry?
950 people around the country, but 2 of them go down and we shut down the country.
Yeah, this is a result of the way the system has evolved over the time, and this is something that we are trying to work through as rapidly as we can in the post-COVID world. The system that we've operated and qualified air traffic controllers, so having 950, and then we have, say, 80 different en route sectors, 29 towers.
Who's responsible for the system?
The system is something that's evolved over time, that's regulated by CASA and has been operated by Airservices in the licensing regime.
If you wanted to change the system, wouldn't it just be CASA and you working out how to...
And that's what we're working through now, because the system that we had pre-COVID, the industry was a much more stable and cyclical type environment. Out the back end of COVID, we found much more volatility. For example, domestic traffic could be at 100%, but when we get into the holiday period, it goes up to 120% and then drops down.
So I understand you provide CASA with weekly reports on monitored airspace interruption.
Yep.
Could you table those reports for this committee, please?
Yes, we can. I don't have them with me now, but we can provide them.
We'll look forward to having a look at those. So, Airservices Australia's contribution to delays and cancellations has been noted by the public and the media. It's appalling, and the most recent data shows that despite earlier progress in reducing interruptions, this progress has stagnated. What is the reason you can't get your act together?
Senator,
Every estimates we have this conversation.
Senator, this is where month on month we continue to work on improving the service. There's no magic silver bullet that changes.
But it's not improving.
Yes, it is, Senator.
Well, that's
the
not the
latest
experience of the Australian travelling public. Are you saying the airlines are blaming you when they shouldn't be?
No, I'm not saying that, Senator. I'm sitting there saying that in December we had our worst month from a continuing trend where 1 in every 6 aircraft delayed was directly attributable to Airservices. In January that changed to 1 in every 8 aircraft delayed was directly attributable to Airservices.
So Qantas, in their submission to the government's white paper, has said Airservices, and I'm quoting, has not provided consistent services and was responsible for close to 20% of delays at the country's 4 biggest airports in the financial year 2023. The inconsistency of service is demonstrated by the concerning increase in events. Generally, it is used in countries with significant challenges providing air traffic control. For example, Afghanistan. So this is our largest airline saying the way you run your business on behalf of us is akin to how air traffic control is worked in a country like Afghanistan. What is your response to Qantas?
My response to Qantas is that is completely inaccurate and actually misleading. So it may have
Please
been,
explain.
So maybe 20 years ago, in the way that we may handle a service variation, that would have been the same protocols that may have been used in Afghanistan at that particular time, but that is not the case of what occurs today. Fortunately, Qantas operations do understand, but maybe other parts of Qantas don't. But the situation that occurs...
It's pretty serious to put in a white paper document.
That's Qantas's opinion, but it's not backed up by
Can I
fact.
just clarify something, please?
Yeah.
I haven't seen the quote from Qantas. When was that quote come out? Have you got a copy just for the rest of the committee? So
I'll have to get... It's the Qantas submission to the white paper, so I think it's public.
I'm just trying to find when that...
Everyone's nodding.
I'm just sorry.
And if my staff can send me the page number, then we can...
And I'm not running a protection racket for Qantas because I thought Qantas more than anyone in this building apart from Senator Sheldon. But if anything came under Mr Joyce's fingers, I'd be very questionable anyway. But let's just find out.
Well, you still all vote against bringing Alan Joyce before the Senate to
Not me,
answer
I don't get a
questions,
vote.
so, you know.
I don't get a vote. I don't even like the man. Anyway.
We're on a unity ticket there. Has any other department, agency or authority ever expressed concerns regarding safety in relation to the serious lack of air traffic controllers and increasing the number of traffic information broadcast by aircraft events?
Senator, just before I answer, I just want to just correct that last bit that you said. The traffic information broadcast by aircraft is an additional protocol that we put into place when we have a service variation in order to ensure safety is always maintained, because we actually set up what we call a temporary restricted area around the area to help protect. I just want to just make that clear on the table. Going back to your original question about me, places like CASA and all that always make sure that with the oversight that any concerns they have, and therefore we need to ensure that we provide the relevant information to show...
Mr Harfield, I know you've got a lot of technical language, but the reality is what we're talking about, these type of events, is where pilots, the aircraft, is no longer talking to the air traffic control tower. They're just talking to each other.
That's not correct, Senator.
Are you sure?
Absolutely,
okay.
Senator.
Why don't you explain what you're talking about?
So when we have a service variation in en route airspace, it's not necessarily the tower, where we don't have the qualified air traffic controller to provide the service, we set up what is called a temporary restricted area. And we have a person to sit there, an operational person that monitors the airspace and decides whether somebody can enter the airspace or not, and managed. At the same time, they provide a flight information service, which is no different. And so we add an additional protocol, which is the traffic information broadcast by aircraft. And that means that the aircraft need to broadcast their position, no different to when they're flying into Class G or some regional ports. And that there means is that it's an extra layer of safety, because instead of the air traffic controller, the person being the only person that knows what's going on, it's making sure that
Mr Harfield, let's be honest, the aircraft saying, cooey, I'm in this space, and other aircrafts going, oh, better not fly over there, there's another plane. They're not allowed to. They refuse to fly under those conditions. Isn't that correct? So you've set up a system that our airlines refuse to fly under.
In some cases, they make the decision, it's the operational decision of the airline whether they do, but some airlines and aircraft do fly through. It's their choice.
That's true. Page 82, Chair, for your benefit. Now, as we know, the Broderick Review, I want to go to the culture of bullying and harassment within ASA that we've actually traversed many times in this committee over many, many years. Once again, we're back here discussing the dysfunction of Airservices Australia. Your recent report into the progress, or lack thereof, in reducing bullying and harassment does not paint a good picture for your agency. There's a lack of trust in the decision-making, and that's a direct quote from the Broderick Progress Report. Many employees have a level of scepticism about the commitment to and depth of any positive change, and as this is, for many of us, what seems like a repeated appearance by Airservices Australia in the same issues, the same discussions, I'm standing with the employees on this one. Why do you think your employees feel that way? Senator, the environment that we're operating in, the changes that continued through COVID, we have a workforce that during COVID came under significant amount of pressure because we had to continue to operate. We have to continue to operate whether there's 0 aircraft flying or 1,000. The nature of our operational staff, for example, have to turn up to work every day. They don't have the ability to work remotely. Mr Harfield, this was conversations about a lack of trust in the decision-making at Airservices. These are your employers saying they don't trust the decision-making. I'm assuming, as CEO, that's you. And a deep level of scepticism about the commitment to and depth of any positive change. Stop talking to me about what happened during COVID. I want to know why your employees feel this way.
Our understanding is that
Does the buck stop with you?
Yes, it does, Senator.
So why are we having the same discussions year in, year out, estimates after estimates?
Because, Senator, cultural change is not something that you do overnight. And this is one of the reasons why, first of all, we commissioned the report back in 2020 based on concerns over the fact that, particularly in a high-pressure environment, to making sure that we're on top of and quite well aware of what adverse behaviours may be operating in the organisation.
So when I go to the 2020 and the 2023 surveys, and you come in here and tell us you've got all these plans to see improvements, but we've seen the phrase given to staff, I would recommend Airservices as a place to work, has dropped from 53% down to 39% between 2020 and 2023. I see myself working at Airservices for the rest of my career drop from 50% of respondents to 36%. What are you doing?
We're doing a range.
Have you just got a bad crop of staff in?
No, not at all, Senator.
Why don't they trust you? Why don't they want to work in this organisation?
Senator, there's probably a range of issues in the sense of connecting to where we're going, what we're doing, how we're changing to continue to operate as an organisation, deliver. And it's one of the reasons that we have a very strong focus out of particularly the second review, because we actually wanted to do that review to see how we were tracking, and having a very strong focus on leadership and ensuring the leadership of the organisation.
I'm about to get to leadership because the report is very scathing of leadership, and the part your management team has played in deteriorating the culture within. And I'm going to report from the report again. It was seen as problematic. The leaders who had set the cultural tone prior to the Broderick review could be the leaders who set the cultural tone going forward. And a respondent actually said there is a perception that nepotism exists for opportunities and advancement to leadership roles. These are your staff participating in a report on workplace culture. Is nepotism on display within your leadership team?
No, it's not, Senator.
What would you say to the staff member that's actually told that to the Broderick review?
That staff member has had a perception of, and I'm not sitting there saying that's not their view of the world, the fact that we've put in mechanisms in place and to ensure with selection exercises is that needs to or is to prevent against that from occurring with 1/1 approvals, etc. I'm not saying that some of those have not existed before in the thing. However, it's one of the things that we've taken on board to ensure that that is not a recurring position.
Okay,
yep.
Excellent. Another respondent in the most recent survey said there remains a lack of psychological safety within Airservices. Now, that's a pretty serious allegation. That require, in an agency where air traffic controllers have to be both physically and mentally healthy, a lot of people are relying on them to do their job properly, to be safe. Are you aware that some of your staff think it's psychologically unsafe to be part of this agency?
Yeah, Senator, I just want to make sure that we get the definition of psychological safety correct. And that's really the permission for candour, being able to speak up and say you're right, and being able to have that conversation, as opposed to psychosocial safety. One of the things that came out of the Broderick review, first the 2021, as well as the update, is how strong our safety culture is in the organisation and how much all of our staff look at the safety side. The psychological safety is one of the reasons why we're putting a very big effort into our leadership team, so that they can create the environment for candour and for people to speak up and have the discussion and have the debate.
What is the total number of complaints received of bullying and harassment in 2023?
So for 2023, not just for bullying and harassment, for all of there were 243 cases raised. Out of those 243, they were resolved through support and advice because people felt that they had been bullied, harassed, or there had been misconduct. That was 174 went there, or 72%. Out of that, suspected misconduct was 69, or 28%. Out of those 69, 5 were unsubstantiated. 32 of those were resolved through non-investigative resolution, such as mediation or resolving the particular issue. 15 of those went to formal investigation. Out of those 15 that went to formal investigation, 9 are still under investigation, 6 resulted in a breach, and with those 6, 3 resulted in a written warning and 3 resulted in total remedial training and formal counselling.
243 cases
of issues raised by people.
I appreciate that, but 28%.
Sorry, can I
So 28% was suspected misconduct. Only 15 of those went to formal investigation.
If I can just clear this up, of the 243, were there repeat offenders in that, or was it?
No. So 243 were the times that people have raised saying that they suspect misconduct or whatever. Yeah. I don't know whether they'll repeat or whatever.
So, given the poor performance of the agency as outlined, has the Minister raised any concerns with you?
The Minister has raised through statement of expectations and in previous correspondence concerns they have, and seeking assurance to what we are doing about it, and we report against them, including the culture review, including our service provision.
So the statement of expectation, but anything more specific?
There was the Minister wrote to the Chair back in March last year, I think it was, raising concerns, and then also through our normal corporate planning process subsequently, and we continue to report on those issues. And
so the Minister is aware of the 243 cases?
That one there will come in our quarterly report, end of year quarterly report, but we report those statistics.
Has CASA ever raised concerns regarding the safety of airspace management, given the ongoing crisis?
There's constant monitoring and constant discussion and making sure that we're putting in the appropriate protocols. That's one of the reasons why we report regularly on a weekly basis. I also provide a further report direct to CASA on a monthly basis overall. It's part of the normal oversight.
So CASA doesn't formally have any concerns?
Chronic unease, but that's a matter for CASA.
Chronic unease.
It's like anything with aviation safety. We've all got a continued chronic unease. We never take it for granted, Senator.
But in terms of implementing the types of processes we spoke of earlier that Qantas has raised concerns within their submission, where you've got aircraft broadcasting to an area their position and not directly, rather than going through air traffic control, that's of extreme safety concern, which is why the airlines refuse to operate under those conditions that your agency says they have to, because you can't get people into work.
Senator, some of the characterisation there isn't exactly what is actually occurring. However, that is something that we continue to monitor, and CASA's concern, quite rightly, is that those protocols that we put into place are not normal business protocols, and making sure that we're putting things in place, and our current rectification program are removing the need to utilise those on a regular basis.
Now, Mr Harfield, I've only got one final section of questions, and I know other senators are keen to get on with it. But we've traversed today's failure, which has effectively shut the country down because no one can get in or out of Sydney Airport because 2 people didn't rock up for work today. We've got the ongoing issue over multiple reports of the culture of bullying and harassment in your organisation, and you trot in here and you give us the same lines year in, year out. We've got the training debacles. How long have you been CEO for?
About 8 years, Senator.
8 years? What's your remuneration?
Off the top of my head, can I refer you to the our annual report, because it's reported in there. It's in the order of 950 total remuneration.
I think you'll find it's over $1 million.
It's not what's reported. No, it's not.
It might not be what's reported.
Sorry?
But I think...
no, it's not. My remuneration.
Are you actually going to quibble with the committee the difference between getting paid a little over $1 million and a little under $1 million? That's incredible, because, Mr Harfield, you are overseeing an absolute show, an absolute shambles show. Thank you, Chair. And you are being paid in excess of $1 million. It's double what Prime Minister Albanese is being paid. It's akin to the department of, Mr Moriarty in DFAT. And I think my point is, this guy cannot get one KPI right, and the Australian public is forking out close or just over $1 million a year for the privilege of this disaster. So, given the performance of your organisation over recent years, how would you rate your own performance?
Senator, if you look at the overall performance of the organisation, is that I would be giving it a B, and considering that we are continuing to change the system to adapt to a different environment, it is about continuing to work through those particular issues.
Are there any bonuses attached to that salary?
No, there is not.
What about clauses that reduce your package should you or your organisation not meet the KPIs and benchmarks that are frequently set?
No, there's not, Senator.
There's no... The Minister can't reduce your salary if you fail to live up to her statement of expectations?
No, because that would be a matter for the board, where the board could actually make that decision. However, we removed any sort of incentive payments or bonuses as a result of changes to our remuneration structure a few years ago.
When is your job up for renewal?
Next month.
Next month. Have you had any conversations with the Minister about reappointment?
No, Senator, because the board makes a determination and a recommendation to Government and the Cabinet process.
So has your chair, your board, sent that recommendation to the Minister?
That is my understanding, yes.
And what is their recommendation to Minister King about your reappointment?
That's for a matter for Cabinet, Senator.
Well, no, it's not before Cabinet. I'm asking a decision of the ASA board. What was the decision of the ASA board?
They made a recommendation to reappoint me.
Sorry?
They made a recommendation to reappoint me.
Wow. I think next time we're going to actually have the board here, because you're taking the rope and running as hard and fast as you can with your $1 million salary, whilst you are presiding over an absolute shit show. Let's be frank. And your board is reappointing you, despite on every metric of what would be a successful Chief Executive Officer's behaviour, you're failing. So that's gone up to Minister King?
My understanding is in the Cabinet process.
Minister Brown, do you think this guy needs to be reappointed? After everything you've heard, estimates in and estimates out.
The government has made their expectations clear to Airservices Australia, and on the point around the government also expects them to ensure a safe working environment. But we know that the aviation has not been delivering the outcomes Australians expect, with higher cancellation rates and more delays to services. But I think that is the position that is now part of a Cabinet process, and I can't respond to that.
No, but you could tell your senior minister that you've been here, you've seen what a debacle it is, and she should not take the board's recommendation, or at least make the board attach improvements to KPIs to salary. Because Mr Harfield is on next to $1 million. It's double the Prime Minister. And the accountability just isn't there.
As I said, the Australian government has made their expectations clear to Airservices Australia, and I can't comment on your question. It's part of the Cabinet process.
From ASA here.
You certainly can. But next time round. But can I just, for the